Today I want to talk about one thing in particular. In the context of being a business owner or an entrepreneur, right? I think it's one of the hardest things, it's one of the most important things. And that's the component and the space that you play in terms of your mental health, your well-being and your happiness, right? I think it's undersold and under-talked about. So I want to hover on this for a little bit today. Just from a couple of conversations I've had during the week with other entrepreneurs. Now, these guys are turning over 50, 60, $100 million a year. What I know about it, right? And I've spoken about this before, is that it's lonely at the top. And it's super lonely. You know, to the point where I think entrepreneurs and business owners and founders who are working at that level, turning over 100, 200, even 500 million, some of them $1 billion, right? They have no one to talk to, except for sort of people like me and other founders around them, right? So you have to join groups to do that, and then there's all these barriers to entry in the way. I find they really struggle with talking to their partners about it, their wives about it, and their family about it, because they don't see it through the same lens, right? So I want to talk today about that little component in a founder or business owner's life, and probably for everyone in general as well. I think there's something to learn about this in general terms, is that what do you do when you're on your own? Right? Think about that. What do you do when you're on your own? When all the noise is gone and all the smoke has settled, and then you're on your own, what goes through your brain? What do you think about? Like, what is your psychology like? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Do you take note of it, and do you understand it? Because I think there's a problem with high performers and those who are looking to be high performers and increase their net worth, build companies and contribute all that great stuff, right? Is that time when you're on your own at home, you know, on your own or in the car, and you're occupying your own thoughts, you know, what happens in that space? Because I see some people really struggle with it. And I think I've struggled with it a little bit over the years, people depending on your personality type. I just did a psychometric assessment, you know, and my key personality trait is a commander, which is that lead from the front type of person, and that quite assertive, aggressive personality type, you know, creates things for people, the huge element of contribution. That's really who I am vertically. But horizontally, I think there's components of personality traits in founders and entrepreneurs that they struggle to understand. So let me deep dive on that particular component. So what I mean is, how can you be happy on your own and happy with other people at the same time, right? So happiness will promote you to be efficient, effective, productive. Right? Gives you clarity, keeps you grounded. Because you can't be in the office and in the boardroom, you know, 10xing it, and then you go home, you're fucking miserable. You just can't do that. So you've really got to think about good habits that you can wrap around your life to be sustainable in that space of happiness when you're on your own. Especially when you're at home on that Friday night. Everyone's out, you sort of couldn't figure it out. You've had a bad week, it's been a struggle, it's been really hard, and you're sitting there with your own thoughts. That's the space where happiness lives, right? If you can conquer that, you can be happy anywhere. If you can be happy on your own, in the hardest of times, you can be happy anywhere. There's a few components of that I'll run through now. The first one is 1 in 3 people have access to clean drinking water. So get the fuck over it. You really have to put yourself in a position where you got to get over it, man. You cannot hover on that stuff and have the poopy pants, as David Goggins says, right? Like, you know, you got to take those poopy pants off and just run forward, whether you want to or not. So you have to force it. The second thing is understanding what makes you happy, right? For me, it's peace of mind. I don't need the Lamborghini. I don't need the flash boat. I don't need the first class ticket to New York. If I was flying in coach, man, I don't really give a shit, you know? So, but if I'm happy and content with myself personally, I'm always happy. I wake up happy every day. There isn't one time when I'm on my own where I don't feel like that. Was I conscious about it? I actually don't think I was. I think I just grew up in a pretty tough environment. So I'm very thankful and grateful for just having a roof over my head, right? So for me, it may be a little bit easier, but I think for people out there, it can be challenging. So all I'm saying is you need to figure out what makes you happy when you're on your own, not what makes you happy in life in general, right? You know, and it's not a holiday, it's not a fancy apartment, and it's not a Lamborghini. We're talking about what's inside you that makes you happy. How can you be happy and content with yourself? Maybe you need to be proud of yourself a little bit more. Maybe you need to think about the skills and the education that you've learned over the years to be proud of that. Maybe it's like, hey, I helped some people this week. And maybe it's just that, hey, it's good to get a break and to be on my own for a little bit so I can read and I can think about contribution and what the rest of my life will look like. You know, that can create content for you. So I just wanted to hover on that and talk about it today. I think it's critically important. I think if you can be happy on your own, you can be happy for your life for the rest of your your life in any scenario or situation. The second part to that is when you get hit, something comes in and hits you from the side, that happiness will lower the impact of that. So the place that your psychology is at, the happiness that you reside in, when you get hit, getting hit doesn't really matter a great deal. Because as you know, the obstacle is the way. What stands in the way becomes the way, right? So that's what I live my life by. Happiness actually created that before I came up with that concept and read the book, right? I already sort of knew it. So that's how I balance everything out for myself, is that I understand when I get hit, what's the success that I can get out of it, or what's the opportunity that presents itself. But I was already in a happy space. Imagine being hit when you're depressed and full of anxiety constantly. You know what I mean? There's a negative end game to that. So I guess I'm putting the magnifying glass or the lens on happiness by yourself internally, psychologically. When something comes along your path that hurts, and it will, it could be a bust up, a divorce, the loss of a loved one. How do you handle that? If you're already elevated up here, it just becomes easier to deal with. Again, if you're down here and you're not that happy, it becomes very difficult to deal with, and then it compounds, right? And then the end game doesn't end up well for you. So just wanted to hover on that. I think it's critically important. We should talk about it more in business. So I hope you got something out of that. Cheers. Thank you.